Hey everybody, it's Matt
I'm Mike.
and Mike doing the IronTrap podcast. We've been doing these for a little while now. I feel like we're in a little bit of a rhythm. We're now probably every week now we're trying to film one here instead of trying to sometimes hard for us to film three in a row or anything.
Yeah.
So we're doing one a week. It's pretty fun. We're now that we're thinking about it, I'm letting conversations with people and things I see on the internet kind of got a list going of ideas, and people have given some submissions, so we got some pretty good ones. So if you're new to the podcast, we do one a week, and we put them out on all the normal platforms, but we're also doing one of them every other one is also a video podcast. So we usually pick a topic that has something interesting for video. So for instance, our last one was we picked our top five favorite America's Most Beautiful Roadsters, and we got a pretty good feedback
Definitely.
on that one. A lot of people liked it, and asked for us to do more like top five customs of all time and stuff like that. So we'll probably do more of those because I mean, for us, very fun to just talk about.
Also hard because you got to really think about.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. If you make me pick a top five 32s or something, I'd have my melon. I would take a while to think about it. And
There'd be a
really,
lot of honorable mentions.
yeah. So we're doing those. So if you're new, make sure you subscribe. We talk pretty much everything from business, motivation, just old cars and hot rods and different stuff like that, and we blend it all together to make something that's interesting.
Yep.
And so we usually do our kind of new news type stuff. So what do we got going on? That's
So the Model A pickup that we bought this summer, well, I guess fall kind of. It was.
I had been agreeing to buy it for like a year,
Yeah.
and actually I didn't want to buy it, but our friend Jamie finally was like, "I'm
Twisted
done."
your arm
Yeah,
enough,
he
yeah.
just said he's not going to buy it, or he wasn't going to finish it. So we bought it from him. He knew that we were going to just either fix it up and sell it, or just sell it as is. And with our recent find this week, we are pretty much completely out of space.
So this is coming out on Sunday. If you haven't gone to YouTube, there's a YouTube video that came out today of our latest find. We're not going to say what it is. You got to go to YouTube and watch it.
Pretty cool, right
Yes.
down the street. Of course, it's something that I don't want to get rid of or sell. So
We are at capacity, basically.
pretty much without pushing stuff outside or really filling every crevice.
And my garage at home, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Does Steve have any room in his garage, or is
I
his
don't
full?
think so.
Dang
We
it.
do. We do have the bed of the big red truck. So
Oh, that is true.
If we need to put something there, we could. But we're trying not to get that crazy.
Yes.
So that's what we've been. We're trying to figure out now. So we put the pickup for sale. I think it's a pretty darn good deal for a Model A hot rod jumpstart project that doesn't need a ton of major metal work. Needs
Yeah.
a little bit, but not a ton.
It'll be up for sale on our website. I put it up on Instagram and on Facebook Marketplace already, but I'll be adding it to the website. So if you'd like to take a look at it, head to our website on
Cars for sale.
There's a Cars for Sale tab. It'll be up there with photos, information, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if
and
you'd like any more information, send us an email, irontrapgarage@gmail.com.
don't try and trade us cars because
Yes.
that's the whole problem.
Yes,
is
we're
that
trying to get rid of a car. We don't need your
unless
other
it's
project.
something really good.
Highly unlikely.
Really good. And I should say that because of us, I've kind of shot myself in the foot because with me doing that and saying that, we recently had somebody we're working on a pretty fun adventure that somebody offered us a trade of something for some help that caught my attention. So I should stop saying that altogether. We don't want to trade at
Yes.
all, because then I end up getting
Extra stuff.
roped into something. So that's what's going on with that. Got some pretty cool, exciting stuff going on with I'm on the board of directors for my local hometown. Boyertown has an auto museum that is very cool and has been growing over the past handful of years. And we're starting to plan the next year of stuff. So we have a pretty cool hot rod exhibit or event that is going to be for next winter that we're now planning, and we'll be talking about it in some of our social just to get people interested in that. But it's going to be super cool. Like we're going to have a pretty cool setup there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see all the what all the cars that we put together for the display.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty fun. So we have that stuff going on, and of course we're trying to right now plan our schedule for the spring and summer. I've already been trying to figure out what we want to do and what events we want to hit. Some stuff we're going to maybe we're trying to hit every year, do something, maybe a different show or event that we haven't done before. So last year I did the drags up in Maine, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm going to do it this year or not, depending on the schedule. I know I'm going to do Brimfield this year, so if you guys haven't heard of that, but Brimfield's an antique show or flea market, but it takes over a whole entire town in Massachusetts, and it's huge. I went a handful of times years ago, and it's been a lot. I've been missing going because I used to vend, and I just want to go and shop and
It's
hang
pretty
out.
crazy for how big it is, for how tiny and
town.
like non-existent the town is.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's kind of like a Carlisle or Hershey, but bigger probably.
steroids, yeah.
Maybe it's as big as Hershey, but it's like in a little town.
It's set up really crazy, too.
Yeah, so our friend Nick, who is from Australia, that did our flathead design and some of our shirt designs, he's coming over to hang out in the States for a little while with his fiance, and himself are going over to hang out, and they hit me up and were like, man, you were talking about Brimfield, we looked into it, looks really cool. So Kate and I are like, all right, we kind of collectively were like, let's do it. So we're going to do that this year, but looking at some car events to hit. I don't know which ones yet. Been sort of thinking about the Custom Revival is a show in Indy that's really good, that's just customs. Obviously with the Mercury, me being heavy on that this year, I've been playing with the idea of maybe submitting that to bring that to that show. So that could be a really cool one. So that's some of the show stuff going on.
There's too many shows, not enough time.
Not enough time. Yeah, that's the problem. I want to do them all, but it butts up against.
There's a bunch of events that they've released dates on. It's like September. And there's so much that goes on in September. It's
yeah,
crazy.
like I saw the Top Secret drags, the same guys that put on the vintage drags in Maine that I went to, Northeast drags or whatever you're calling it, or New England, whatever. They put on that Top Secret drags last year, and it was in the fall. And we just weren't able to go because I think it kind of butted up with Carlisle. But this year they did the dates, and I looked at the calendar. I was like, yeah, definitely do that because it's a lot closer to us. It's the same weekend as Gasket Goons, which is like a show that is really big in our area, and we also help out with. So we're not going to abandon our friends, the club that runs that. So it kind of stinks because we sort of need to do that. But I would.
And I just figured with September, there's Carlisle and Hershey we're getting ready for, and there's so much other shit that we already do in September.
That show's not far. It's kind of near Watkins Glen. So that's a
true.
show that 2 hours or 2.5 hours. We could take a quick run up there. But like the main one is like ends up being 9 or 10 hours of driving with traffic. So each way. So it's a commitment. So anyways, that's
Speaking of that, I need to update our calendar of events on our website. I haven't done that since last year. So
So we will do that.
Some dates I need to.
So our
change.
our website, we have some. We usually put some of the events we're hitting. So we're gonna maybe not by when this podcast comes out, but very soon we will have our calendar of events that we're going to do. So if you want to meet up with us or see us at an event, we will have some of them on there, and we of course will add them as stuff happens. But we will put some of our events that we usually try and hit.
Yep.
And if there's one or two that we're going to do that's not local or new, we will try and put it on there. So maybe we can meet some new people.
Yeah, and see some new cars. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that's definitely it. So today's topic is top 5. We're calling them hacks, but top 5 hacks for getting an ultra deal on that project car or rare part that you've been lusting after. And this is for some stuff that's worked for me over the years. It's a lot of these things that we're going to give for tips or hacks. Has just become second nature to us. So it doesn't feel like it's a hack anymore, but it is.
And if you watch the channel, you've seen us implement all of these.
Yep.
Throughout the years.
Yep.
Multiple times.
And a lot of this stuff, we obviously do it on a much larger scale or more aggressively, or we have. And I guess the reason we're kind of doing some of these is we get sometimes backlash for people that will give us backhanded compliments at events that act like we get all of these deals because the channel just gives us, because of the channel, everybody just comes to our doorstep with 32 Fords. And yes, we do get a lot of leads off the channel, but there's a lot of times that we get leads, or I've gotten leads before the channel that was just from doing all of these things. And
some of it, sometimes the leads we get now is we do all this. We find on Facebook Marketplace or just scouring the internet.
Yep. So we're going to go through all these and just give some tips and then some, maybe some examples or things like that. So number one.
This is probably this is number one for sure.
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest one is repetition. So again, creating good habits that you can do as second nature. So doing the repetition, I have kind of like a note: ask a lot, go early, go often. Mm-hmm. So ask a lot is a tough one. There is a fine line with asking a lot. That can be taken a lot of different ways. Yeah. So caveat is don't ask a lot. Like if you know a guy that has a car in a garage or a barn and you want to buy it, asking too often can make that person never want to sell it to you again, or that part or whatever. Yeah. I know I've definitely, even in the short time that I've been hoarding, I've had guys on social media and different places that see something in the background and they ask so much that I literally have blocked people because they're just being a dick about it, like asking too much. Like if you politely say 3 or 4 times and then it's like they're just being annoying, that doesn't work. And I know with the older guys in non-internet times, it's the same way. Guys going to chase you off the property if you're too annoying. So there is a fine line with asking. Patience we didn't put that in the list here, but patience should be a huge one.
Definitely.
I have a lot of that stuff where it's like just being patient, and when the person's ready, they will let you know.
And there's a fine balance to all that, because if you're too patient,
you can miss out on a deal.
Yeah, there's a fine balance of being aggressive and patient, and you have to just read the person and learn how to be aggressive but not be too annoying, but also be patient and just wait for it to pop up.
But the ask a lot, a good example of that, and I learned this years ago, and I don't even know who the guy is, but when I first started going real heavy to swap meets, like hot rod related or early Ford or whatever, antique car swap meets, there was a guy, older guy I used to see running around manically trying to buy real early in the morning. But he would just run, and this was probably a little too much. He would run to every booth or every guy that first came in and go, "Do you have boom, 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 boom?" And he would give his checklist of stuff he was looking for. I don't remember if it was T-Bird parts or whatever, this and that. And the person would go, "No, I got Chevy parts." Okay, boom, and he'd run to the next guy. And that was like his method for trying to, hit a guy before he even started pulling anything out of the truck. And it was a neat method, but I took that idea of you should ask people a lot. Just ask them casually if they have something you're looking for, a type of thing. And I've tried to get better at doing that, because I used to be. Sometimes it feels like you're bothering somebody, but if you don't ask, you'll never know. So asking a lot, just say, "Hey, do you have any, the early Ford stuff, or do you have any old speed equipment or flathead stuff?"
Or if you see one 32 part, it never hurts to ask, "Do you got any more 32 parts? I see you have a fender here. Do you have any windshield frames?" Or, just ask upon what they already have. And
it works more times than you would think. Or sometimes I've had instances where, back to the patience thing, where a guy says, we're at Carlisle, and he goes, "I'm from South Carolina. I got a bunch more back to place. I didn't think guys would be looking for it." And then you just get friendly with them. "Are you going to be here next year?" "Yeah." And again, the patience thing, you say, "Oh, cool. I'll come and see you." And I'll write down a note of like that guy's space number. And a year later at Fall Carlisle, I'll come sniffing around his space when you see the guy. And, "Hey, how you doing?" He said next year. And you hope that the guy will bring the stuff. Or maybe you get a phone number and you call him a few months or a month before the swap meet and say, "Hey, remember me? Can you bring some of that?" And then, so asking a lot, maybe not the same person, but asking, often, you will come across stuff. And we've even had that with selling as a seller.
Yep.
We have stuff in the trailer that maybe we didn't bring out, or we forgot to bring, or we just have it home and didn't bring, and a guy will ask us and we'll bring it, or they find it. There was something.
Almost every swap meet or event we do, say, no, we have it at the warehouse. Here's our business card. So like the week after every event, there's always an uptick in sales because I'm just selling random stuff that people were looking for that we just didn't bring along.
Well, I think at Fall Carlisle this year, didn't we have a pretty nice 34 dash? And a guy came up and he was doing that. Hey, any 33 4 parts, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, we got some stuff in the trail. And he said, you don't happen to have a dash, do you?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and
we were unloading. Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, actually, we have a pretty nice one. He's like, no. And then he like, again, repetition, he came back like 6 times.
As we were unloading, that's right.
Yeah, and it was like he did it really well. He wasn't being rude. He just checked in. He was like, hey, did you get to that dash? Now it's right there. We'll make sure we won't put it out for you. But I know how it is myself. Sometimes guys say that, but then they put it out, and somebody buys it. So he checked back, and then he ended up buying it, and it was perfect for him.
Yep.
It worked out great. So, like, that was a good example of somebody being on the seller's side and the repetition working with us, that somebody got something. It was what they wanted.
If you want really good example of repetition, watch any sign guy at the setup day of a swap meet, because they're going to come up to every vendor as they pull in. You got any signs in there? And I will give it to them. They are very
persistent.
Repetition.
Yeah, persistent.
Every single person.
Sometimes they're a little much. Those guys are a little bit like crackheads, I feel like, because they're just like a little too much. And we like messing with them sometimes. I'm going to be completely honest.
Oh, yeah.
We screw with some of these annoying sign guys sometimes, and I'm like, oh yeah, totally. We got this cool old sign my grandfather gave me in the trailer, and the guy will keep coming back, and I'm like, I forgot it at home. I'm sorry, man.
So did someone else. Sorry, man. Someone else came by.
Just because it's funny, because we don't do that often, but if it's a guy that's being a real kind of douche and being annoying, we'll sometimes do that. So, for the repetition as well, swap meets, auctions, car shows, all that kind of stuff. Repetition is very important. Auctions, number one, is very, very, very important for repetition. So if you are lucky enough that in your part of the world there is still in-person auctions happening, or even online, I should say that, online auctions. And my older friend of mine that comes a lot, Joe, he is like an auction addict, and he made a good comment this week when he was here visiting, and he said, if you go to enough auctions, you're going to eventually get a deal. And he's right. Like, when I first started going to auctions, it was really discouraging, because I would go and the really good stuff would get bought for more than I could afford or that I wanted to spend. But once I started going and really checking any auction that, even if it maybe had a chance of having stuff, and this goes for swap meets too. You might go to that little swap meet that may not seem like it's that good, or maybe it's Chevy stuff and you're after Ford stuff, that if you do it enough, you're going to go and you're going to walk into that auction or swap meet, and you're there at the right time. A lot of it's luck, and you'll. That's
all it is luck.
Most of it is luck with especially when it comes to auctions and swap meets. A lot of it is luck, and you go to that auction on the right day. And it happened to me a lot where, like I always talk about the one Atlantic sign I have hanging in the shop downstairs. There was a farm auction, literally like half a mile down the street from my old house, and I was actually in the process of moving in here, and I was way too busy to go to an auction, but I was driving by, and I'm like, I gotta stop. So I stopped, walked around. Well, here, the morning of the auction, they found that porcelain Atlantic sign was turned the wrong way, and somebody had painted like fruit for sale in the back, and one of the auctioneer workers, turned the sign over and was like, holy crap. So I was standing there was no other sign people there, just a little podunk farm auction with just stuff, and I bought the sign for a few $100 because there was no competition. That was the repetition. I went to go look, and even if you just go to the previews of the auctions and you don't see anything, you don't have to go. But at least doing that, or you go to the swap meet for the first hour, you're pretty much going to know if it's worth sticking around or not, and so it works big time. And then the last part of the repetition is bring it up in normal conversation with what we call normies.
Yep.
So normal everyday people, if you work and it used to work for me working in office type jobs when I was younger, just like talking to somebody, and some guy you hear a conversation in the lunchroom, and the guy's like, yeah, my grandfather died, and he has this, but all kinds of old junk we got to deal with or whatever, and you go, heard you talking.
Mm-hmm.
happen to have any old cars or any of that kind of stuff, or just normal conversation, being friendly. We've talked about so much in the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, you did it a lot with the video game stuff.
Yeah,
when you were doing.
just dropping not just hinting at what you're into. People remember that. So,
Yep.
you're always like, yeah, I used to hunt for retro video games, and you just constantly bring that up. People remember that. And I used to get leads at yard sales all the time. People I used to work with at the chocolate company would just be out at a yard sale, and they send me a photo of like a huge box of video games. They're like, it's $10. Be like, please buy that, and we'll come pick it up from your house.
Yeah, yeah.
So they know that that's what you're into, and they're not looking for it, but it's subconsciously in their mind. They're like, oh yeah, Mike's really into that stuff. I should give him a call. And you're just planting a seed. Hopefully one day we'll.
Till one day it works too well, like
Yeah.
Mike with Ham's beer stuff, and now we have every person on the internet that ever sees a Ham's beer item, Mike gets an email.
Yep, I appreciate it, I really do, but sometimes there's too many.
But that goes back to the repetition of reminding people what you're looking for or what you're into. And now, again, that's stuff that we've done it on a grander scale with the YouTube channel, that we're always talking about it, that we're always looking, and we get a lot of people to do it. But I still get people from my normal life. So, like, just for instance, recently, an very old Volkswagen friend of mine that I haven't talked to in 10 or 15 years randomly on Facebook messaged me out of the blue and said, hey, I just took over this garage that a guy passed away, and I'm leasing the property, and he still does mostly European car repair. And he said, hey, the guy used to be into the, that kind of antique cars you're into, and there's still a lot of stuff laying around. So he starts sending me photos, and sure enough, there's a Project Woody sitting in like a Chevy, maybe like a 40 Chevy Woody, sitting in the parking lot with a tarp over, and he sends it to me, and boom, I text my buddy Jeff, say, hey, I didn't want it, but I texted my friend Jeff and said, hey, because again, Jeff's taught us almost anything Woody he's probably going to buy or interested in, even if it's really rough, if it's a good deal. So I hit him up, he went and bought it, and that all just came from an old friend that remembered that I got into these cars. And anytime I see those old friends, I always go, hey, if you see something, let me know. And it works after time and repetition. You have people from your past coming back that you haven't talked to in years saying, hey, you still looking for 32 Fords? Yeah, I am. Oh, well, I found one. My new neighbor that moved in.
Yeah.
They found one in the garage, whatever. So
one thing I wanted to add with this, we were talking about swap meets. It made me think of when you're at swap meets, walk everything, every row, look in every booth. I can't tell you how many times, towards the end of Hershey, I'm kind of just wandering around. I'll see people 10 times throughout the day all over the field, and they're just walking around like maniacs. If you don't have the time, I can understand it. But if you have the time, walk every row, look in every booth.
Yep.
Consistency, and just you have to look in every booth. There's so many times I walk by stuff and people are like, oh, I'm looking for XYZ. I'm like 3 rows over, there was one in a booth. They're like, I walked right past it.
It's like, yeah, you were in a hurry.
Yeah.
People treat swap meets like it's a race, and they're trying to power through.
I walked all of it in 2 hours. Like, well, of course you walked all of it. Did you look at anything?
Yeah. Show me the number one way that I can tell you're bad at Hershey, when you brag that you walked all of Hershey in one day, or that you walked through the whole field in an hour. Great, I can power walk Hershey, but you're also this. A lot of times, that's the same guy that goes, "I didn't find anything. Hershey sucks.
There's nothing but junk here."
It's like, if you actually walk and look, you can't come out of there without buying something. I feel like so. I think that's true, and it's happened to each other where we've gone back, or even when we're picking places together, and like we're in a hurry to try and get through the stuff and get in the truck and get on the road, and then I'll go back or you'll go back and go over each other's areas that we were picking, and you're like, dude,
hey, we missed this
killer item, and that's just
the other thing with swap meets is I try and, if you have time, walk it backwards the different way.
Yeah.
So if you walk up an aisle, walk it back the other way, because sometimes there's just stuff set in the right direction. You totally miss it walking one way, and the other way it's there plain as day.
At Carlisle and Hershey, I do that a lot, because like when you're at a big swap meet where you spend multiple days, you tend to leave your booth the same direction every way, like walking home from school the same way. So like I try and force myself to like walk the weird way, walk through the back of some guy's booth and out some odd way, and then you see a sign or some weird thing that was leaning against the back of that guy's booth that nobody else could see, and you're like, oh crap, what's this? You know.
And it's tough with Carlisle and Hershey because the aisles can be wide, and with large groups of people, you may have just totally walked by someone's booth because there was a large crowd and you had to walk around, and you just missed it. So being consistency, that's the biggest thing. Every row, look in every booth. Don't miss it because you're gonna miss it if you walk too fast.
Truth. So number 2 is, and we are we do this to the extreme, but I've built a business around this concept. Buy more than you need.
Yes.
So that's the number 2 kind of headline, and that is. So again, we get people that will, when we bring that topic up, and this one comes to play. We're getting good at trying to train people on this stuff now, because I was on the Ham the other day, and there was a cool thread about this younger guy found a kick-ass. He got like the insane deal on a Model A coupe project, old hot rod, like slicks, roll bar.
Oh wow!
With this like candy cane like upholstery wrapped on the roll bar. Like,
that's killer.
I think he might be in Texas. Super cool. I think they did a blog article on the front page, and then I clicked through and looked, and I'm like, man, this thing's amazing. I'm reading through it. So I was reading through it, and somebody tagged us because he was trying to buy I guess it had a Hillborn injected flathead it originally had in it.
Snap.
And the guy had a bunch of extra parts in a building on pallet racking in addition to the car. So the guy that bought the car was saying he wanted that engine, but he just couldn't afford it or whatever. Somebody said, you should do like IronTrap does, an IronTrap style, and just go in and buy all the extra parts and then sell them, and you'll get your engine that you want. And I'm like, that's awesome. People are getting an idea. Like, some people that do what we do are super like competitive, and they don't want to give out their secrets, or everybody's secretive. Like, this stuff's whispering to each other, and there's no fucking like. There's really no secrets to this stuff. All the stuff we're saying is kind of common sense, but
it's common business practice.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that on the Ham, some guy was like, this, because I was about to type the same thing. I'm like, dude, you got to buy everything.
Just buy it all and keep what you need.
Yeah. So we're seeing that, but like that was a good one I just saw. Like, he bought the car. He now had a chance to buy all the parts or some of the parts, and yes, it was expensive, but for the crazy deal he got on the car, the parts were probably going to be reasonable, even if they were more expensive. And he said some kind of price that the guy said was outrageous for the engine, but sometimes people do that, and we found that with that one item they hyper focus on, and I'd say it was $10,000 for this engine. You're like, that's insane, even with Hillborn injected.
Yeah.
But it's like, but could you work a deal and get everything in the building, and in the end it's a much better deal? And I understand you need to have the capacity or the income, the money to do that, but I think sometimes you need to make it happen. It's
definitely.
I've definitely had instances in my life where financially I probably shouldn't have done that thing, and you somehow make it happen, whether you borrow the money from a friend or you run yourself real low on money. If you know it's good, it works out.
At least with this stuff, it's a tangible item you can hold in your hand, so you can't lose your money because you got it. Whereas you could invest your money in the stock market and it could be gone literally 10 minutes after investing.
Yeah, so some of the advice I'm saying, I don't take stock market advice from me.
No, not at all.
With this type of concept, and obviously it goes without saying, like, if you're, I don't want anybody like not paying their mortgage and losing their house. Now, given I've done that we've talked about that, I've literally spent the money that was my rent money to buy something at an auction because I knew that I was going to make the money. But you got to be confident in that and have the motivation.
Or dumb, one of the two.
Yeah, dumb is also another thing. But but yeah, like buying in bulk, or like,
I mean, 2 cars we bought last year are prime examples of that. Like that 32 5-window.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't an outstanding deal.
It wasn't a deal at all, honestly. Like the car, for what they wanted for the car initially, was retail. I mean, let's be honest. It was retail is what it should cost. It's basically what we would have sold the car for if we were trying to sell it. And I really wanted to get it because I'd sort of been involved with it, since it was drug out.
Yeah.
And then when the parts came into play, we worked a deal, and it's like, okay, well, the parts are going to make the car cheaper, so that in the end, it's not. I don't think that one's going to be free, but
no.
the car will be affordable in the end after doing the long way around.
Yes.
So, especially when it's just an individual and you're not doing a business, like you got nothing but time. So if you got to do that where you got to buy all the extra parts that's in the garage with the car, you could sell all that stuff, and then you end up making your money back, and you get the thing you want. So we talk about it all the time.
Yep.
I mean, it's great. Another thing to think about is you go to buy a car, and more oftentimes than not a garage find or barn find car, there's probably something else sitting on the property, another vehicle or like that, and maybe it's not as exciting, but you might be able to buy that one for really cheap because you got a relationship going. So for instance, the deal we got on one of the cars just this week that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Our friend went there, and there was actually 4 cars in the garage. He couldn't necessarily. He said he couldn't afford them, but I think he could have. But he couldn't justify them. Let's say that, because a lot of older guys will be like, I can't afford this. They got like $1 million in the bank. His play money, he couldn't afford it, didn't want to buy it. But he bought 2 cars with the idea that the one car that we ended up buying was most of the money he paid for all of it, and he knew that the other car, while it wasn't as good, he knew he could clean it up and make most of his profit on the back end off of that second car.
And we do that a bunch of times too.
Yeah, we've bought a car, and then probably one of the best ones we did was the Brookville Roadster deal in Georgia, South Carolina, because again, what they wanted for the Brookville Roadster was actually, I think it's what we sold the car for when we kind of made it a roller. But then when they started adding all the parts that were in it, and they didn't really value all that stuff, that was just the extra stuff with the car. And then you look in the background, and there's an original 3-window body in pieces, and you're like, oh. Then you just start looking at photos, like, oh, there's sub rails, there's the wood, there's the floor,
restored gauge panels and boxes,
there's the doors. Holy crap! What's a 3-window worth if it's even in pieces? So, in the end, we made money, and I got a free
window,
and that's what we call it, the free window. So someday I'll put that thing together, and it'll be a car. But like, that was a great example. Even when we got there, we told them, I'm like, I don't really care about this Roadster, to be honest.
Yeah, I
want this. I want the original junkie thing, and I'm sure they thought we were crazy. But
and when you're dealing with an estate, sometimes buying more ends up being cheaper because you're doing them a service at the end of the day.
Yes.
You're clearing out a ton of stuff. They're going to hopefully work with you on price because you're taking a large quantity of items.
Yeah, and we've had for instance, we had estates. There's one I'm thinking about in particular that there's people that got sour on us getting into a state, and we quote unquote bought everything, and now they're pissed at us or they hate us. But it's like, we talked to the estate, and we didn't get in there first. We were like the 10th person to get in there, and a couple people bought stuff, and we start talking to the people that are running an estate, and they essentially told us that like these guys that are mad at us, they went in there and tried to buy 1 item or 2 items, spent all day there, wasted the family's time, and they either didn't buy anything, or they lowballed them on the one thing, or it just, in the end of the day, the hassle for selling that one thing wasn't worth it to the family. They need to handle a whole estate. So I've found that if you go in and you buy a bunch of stuff, it makes everybody's life easier. You're going to get a better deal. The family or the people selling, it doesn't matter if it's an estate or it's just a guy. Like if a guy comes, I mean, we just had it this weekend. A guy came to buy a set of wheels that Mike had talked to the guy about. And the guy came, saw the stuff we have, and he goes, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And I start pulling stuff out, and he's like, "Oh man, and I gave him a killer deal because he bought 5. He was taking a bunch of stuff, and in the end, he got like way better deal, and he was paying retail for the wheels, but then I ended up giving him a really good deal because he was taking like 5, 6, 7 items. It's like, okay, well, that's great for us. A bunch of stuff's moving. So it works no matter what. It's not just an estate, but like we've come into some situations where other people have been at a place, and because they're trying to buy that one item, it makes it harder. But you buy a bunch of stuff, it makes it, a lot easier. So, and the buy more than you need, the one other thing that I have in here that I think is a really good one is keep a good thing rolling. So this is especially swap meets. So a bunch of times when we walk swap meets, you'll walk up on a guy that is or gal that is very easy to deal with. The stuff's maybe really affordable, or they just, some of these vendors will outright tell you, like, I don't want to go home with any of this stuff. I want to make a deal.
They want to make package deals.
Yes.
So the more you buy, the cheaper it gets.
Yes. And we've had a bunch of times where we walk up and you ask about, this item, and then you ask a price for that item, and then and then you could kind of tell. Then the guy could see you're interested in a bunch of stuff. I go, well, I'll give you a deal if you buy a bunch of stuff. And you're like,
or all of it.
All of it. Yeah. And you're like, well, what would you do? And, I've had instances like for gauges, for instance. You're asking about this gauge and that gauge. And the guy goes, you just ought to buy all my gauges because I don't want to deal with selling all these gauges. Okay, well, what do you want for all the gauges? And then the guy tells you, like, the same price for all of them as the 3 you asked about because he just wants them gone. You're like, well, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like, so keeping a good thing rolling, whether it's a swap meet, whether you're in person picking and you got a good relationship going and you keep buying, or you maybe you bought a car and you got a good price on it. Again, a good thing's rolling. They're probably going to be easier to deal with to buy these other things, and that happens to us all the time at estates. We go to buy a car, you agree upon a price before we even get there, and you get there and you pay the price, the person's happy, and they go, well, let me show you the rest of the stuff that you have. So, like I had that happen with that Judson supercharger I got, a local estate that had really good stuff. The guy called me to come pick up literally some junky filth,
scrap bin type stuff,
scrap bin 32 stuff that he was going to basically give to me. And I actually said on the phone, no, I don't. I'll pay you for the stuff if it's usable. So I got there and I think there was 32 two-door sedan seats, and I'm like, they were nice, and I'm like, I can't just take this stuff. I want to pay you something for it. And as soon as I did that and paid him for the stuff he was about to give me, because I was being honest, he goes, let me take you in the shop. I got some other stuff for my dad that's left over. And then I walk in, and there's a Judson supercharger. There's like 3 sets of heads. There's all kinds of really good stuff. And then he goes, you want to buy this stuff? He wasn't going to show. It was a test. He wasn't going to show me that stuff if I would have just taken the filth and the good stuff and ran, because he knew what he was doing. The guy wasn't dumb. So he was kind of testing me. And then I was able to buy all that stuff, again, bought in bulk. I bought everything he had there to make it easier for him because he didn't want to deal with people on the internet. And I just wanted the supercharger. We sold all the extra stuff. Supercharger was very fair in the end, and now I have it.
We didn't sell all the stuff. You kept some other stuff from there, too.
Did I?
Don't lie.
What else did I keep?
A set of Navarro heads.
Oh, shit. I forgot that. Yeah, we still did all right.
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing with you.
Dang it. Forgot about that.
We sold everything else, and I only kept one item.
Yeah, you're right. I probably kept a fuel block, and I kept a set of heads.
Yeah,
okay.
It's okay. Well, I'm just busting your balls.
Anyways. So, buy more than you need. That's a good one. And the last one on that is I've done it in the past a bunch. Buy a car or a larger item to get the thing that you want or need. I've bought engines because it has a rare intake or item that I want on the engine. And yes, it sucks to spend $4,000 on an engine because it has a super rare intake that's only worth $2,000 on it. But you take that intake off, you put an Offenhauser intake on it, and you sell the engine for the same $4,000 you bought the engine for because it's still worth that same amount of money. So buying a car, because I see guys do it a lot actually with cars. Buy a car because it has a blower engine in it and you want the blower engine, but the car's really affordable. And you put a stock small block Chevy back in it and the car's still worth similar money. And now you got this kick-ass engine or wheels or, whatever it is. Because everybody's tried it before. You try and buy the wheels off a car that's for sale on Marketplace, and the guy goes, "No, why would I do that?" So, and we even get that. Would you sell the tailgate off of that pickup? And you're like, "No."
Oh, actually, I forgot to tell you, George messaged me about the truck. I was like, would you sell just the bed? I said, sure, $4,500 and it comes with a free pickup truck.
Yeah, exactly. So it's generally it doesn't work. Every now and then it might work, but George would be more smart to buy the truck from us, swap his bed onto it, and sell it for the same price we're selling it for.
Yeah, exactly.
And he'd be way ahead of the game. But not everybody can do that. But keep that in mind. There's a lot of times I've done that where I bought a larger item to get the thing. I've bought a whole dashboard at Hershey or Carlisle because the gauges that are in the cut-up dashboard are Stuart Warner Wings gauges. And it's like, well, holy crap, the gauges are worth a bunch of money. I'll pull the gauges, sell the 32 dash with the holes that are cut in it, and it'll still be worth the same amount of money or very similar.
Yep.
So it's just having an open mind when you're doing this stuff. If you think about it, you can sometimes creatively come up with what you want for cheap or free. Number 3, this was your idea, basically. Use the internet.
Yep.
So
it's we all carry mini computers in our pockets for the most part. Most people have a smartphone. Use the internet to your advantage. I mean, you're literally carrying all the information you could possibly want in your pocket. Don't be lazy. Use it. Yeah.
So, and this goes back to the repetition. Often, I have it in my nightly ritual before bed or whatever.
Before you put your jammies on?
No, usually once I'm in bed with my jammies on. Moon's snoring next to me. Kate's reading a book. I'm searching misspellings on auction websites.
That's usually when I get auction listings from Matt. Actually, now that I think about it, it's usually pretty late
midnight.
at night.
Yeah, 11,
what the hell is he still doing? Ooh, that's a cool auction.
Yeah. So using, I just got in a routine of checking common keywords, misspellings.
The misspelling's a huge one.
Yeah, it's not as big on eBay as it used to be because their search function got really good. But you still searching that, going on Facebook Marketplace and searching rat rod in 100 miles of you, and sometimes something pops up that's interesting. I mean, again, this is the repetition. You're gonna search 1,000 times for that one time to get that, but just doing that regularly. Mike had a good idea. What was the part
numbers? Like if you're hunting a rare adapter or intake that has a specific part number, search just the part number because people are lazy and they won't try and figure out what it fits. We do it all the time with adapters, Matt. Flathead, LaSalle. They're hard to identify, so people just list them as Offenhauser, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it doesn't have what it fits, but that part number off the top of your head. You put it in your search as a keyword, and anytime that pops up, it's there and available.
I just did that with there's a Facebook group for LaSalle transmissions actually, and one of the guys that's really like a guru with them commented up with a snap-on, an old obsolete snap-on pliers that were made to take that impossible circlip out of the LaSalles, and even early Fords used that style circlip. They always pop off, and there was a special set of circlip pliers that were made for that, and he gave the part numbers, so I put it in my...
Oh, that's what those pliers were for you bought on eBay.
PCJ10, I think is the part number.
I'm going to bleep that out so no one can buy them.
I already got a set.
Oh, that's true.
So I put that part number in, and lo and behold, a lot of them were going for... I guess a lot of people are looking for them. So they were going for $50 to $70. And I'm like, man, I'm cheap. I didn't really want to pay that. So I just kept looking, and a set popped up for like $30 or $35 or whatever it was, or I don't remember, $20. And I hit buy now right away. They literally just came up because they got a little notification. So some of that stuff's handy, not just on rare car parts, but even in normal stuff like that. Using the internet is helpful. But also... the same idea as some of the stuff we said in person. Like, if you see a guy on Facebook Marketplace is a normie is listing like early Ford parts, and you see it's some like 37-year-old girl that doesn't look like she probably is an early Ford person selling flathead speed equipment, maybe you want to say, hey, do you have any other stuff, or ask a couple questions? Because I've had times where you hit them up and like, oh, my grandfather, he doesn't use the internet. He's asking me to sell his stuff. And you go, well, does he have anything else, or can I have his phone number? And then boom, you get the connection. You call the guy, and now you're talking to the guy.
Yep.
And he was just the granddaughter's just going over and taking 3 photos every Saturday to sell some stuff for him, and you get that. Or you see something in the background and you ask about it. And again, there's a lot of people that do it too much.
We get it all the time.
All the time. You see guys in listings that outright say it. Nothing in the background is for sale.
I forgot to do it on the truck listing, and someone asked me today if the 32 in the background was for sale.
Yeah. Not for sale. Sorry.
Nope.
Said 5 window that I bought. So that it does work, and even though some people get annoyed by it, it actually, the same ideas that I said with the guy I used to see running around the flea market asking, do you have these 5 things? It literally doesn't hurt to ask. I've bought stuff off of Facebook groups where a guy had just bought the stuff for a good deal. Like a guy comments up and goes, hey, my neighbor was in the flatheads. I bought all these engines and all this speed equipment for really cheap. What do I got? And you hit the guy up and say, hey, I know you don't know what you're doing with stuff yet. I'm interested in X. Point out that item. And sometimes I got my really rare ENS 4.2 low intake from a guy that was like that. He had gotten a really good deal on the stuff. I ended up paying fair price. It wasn't like I got it for $200, but like, say it's a $2,500 intake, I might have got it for $800 or $900. So I was pleased. He was happy because he probably didn't realize it was worth that much money. And then once I asked about it, he started doing some research and whatever. But I was the first one to be able to buy it because I asked that question as soon as I saw the post. So persistence, repetition.
It's all the
use
same,
the internet.
The number one item trickles down through all of our other talking points.
Persistence and repetition. Yeah, for sure. Number 4 is don't be afraid to trade up.
Yes.
You literally can watch this real time. Start with IronTrap video number 1 and watch the progression.
It snowballs pretty fast.
Yes. Don't be afraid to trade up. And I've literally had guys told me this when I first started getting heavy into early Fords, and I didn't fully understand it or believe it, but it was like once you have certain things, the stuff just finds you. So I could never figure out some of the old guys. It was like they're always getting like stuff's always popping up for them. And it was kind of like, again, back to the repetition, people were trained. Once you have the stuff, people then know that you are interested in it and you get offered it. So you'd be really surprised. So what I kind of did was you start buying, if all you can afford is to buy junk, once you get that stuff, you're going to eventually start trading up. So if I really wanted a Model A Roadster. So actually, I should take a step back. I really wanted a Model A Coupe or Roadster project, and the first one I bought before the Pagoda City Coupe was a piece of crap, old, used up circle track.
What's better
car.
than the IronTrap YouTube? Go to IronTrap Instagram, scroll for like 3 hours, and go to the early days of map building hot rods.
Yeah,
and the snowball process is pretty funny because there were some really junky pieces of shit.
Yeah, I was buying some real junk, but it was like I wanted a Model A, so I bought what I could afford. A guy I knew in Jersey had this old used up circle track car he had pulled out of the weeds somewhere, and it had a frame, it had a drop axle.
Is that the frame that's under the Sweetheart Roadster?
No, it had a Model A frame.
Oh.
But the front drop axle and brakes are under the Pagoda City Coupe.
Oh, okay.
But it was a piece of crap car, so I bought that car. I was going to start building it. I took it apart. I took all the pieces off to start, starting on it. And then as I was gathering parts, stuff started to find me. I started going to more swap meets. And then next thing you know, I'm standing at a swap meet, and the Pagoda City Coupe body on a frame rolls into the swap meet. Had money in my pocket. and it just kind of, and like before that, I had been searching and going to swap meets, and I couldn't seem to find a Model A project that was a good deal or was, whatever. And
Reference the talking point number 1, persistence.
yeah, so that same thing applies. After I started getting heavy into it, obviously I was like lusting after having a 32, 3, 4. And it's like, man, I wish I could find one, blah, blah, blah. And eventually I was buying some 32 parts, and then I got the Schroll Coupe, and I got the Skelly 34, and it was like a light switch. Once I got those cars and started getting that parts, all of a sudden, older guys and guys that had 32s and 4s, I would see them around places at flea markets, but a lot of these older guys, you don't really know what they have. Some of them don't really talk about it. All of a sudden, they saw me drive up in a 32, or I say, even if you're at the flea market, and older guys will sometimes say, what are you working on? And you go, oh, I got a 32.5 window I'm building. Oh, I got a 32. And then all of a sudden, like, but if I would have said, oh, I got a 55 Chevy Bel Air, they would have been like, oh, that's cool. I don't have any Chevy parts.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that when you have that stuff, the stuff starts finding you. And now once I got the Schroll car and the Skelly car, we really started seeing it. And it was like, oh, they buy 32s, oh, they buy 34s.
It's funny how that has to...
I don't know why it's a thing, because there's plenty of people that have Model A's that can afford a 32. It's what they have. But people just... There is this secret society when it comes to the better stuff in all genres of collector cars I've found.
Just because... Or even just stuff, because always the best stuff sells privately. It never goes in the open market.
Well, there's always this like snobby, higher echelon, like people, like a subculture of every hobby. So when I was into German cars, the guys, like when you talk about air-cooled Volkswagens, the guys that had the split windows and the oval windows and the split window buses were snobby to the guys that had a Super Beetle. Because the Super Beetles and the Vanagons, that was like the lower level stuff. And yes, they were all cool, but those other guys, they hung out together.
You know what we call those that group of people? Nerds. Early Ford nerds.
Yeah, so early Ford nerds, it is even worse with that stuff. It's like the Deuce guys. The Deuce guys, I'm a Deuce guy. And they're like so into that stuff, which I'm super into it too. But like, there's this trading of once you get good stuff, and I noticed it, and I've very, very heavily resisted it. Certain guys that are, in that echelon, that now that I got some better stuff, now I'm cool enough to talk to, or they want to, whatever. And while I'm friendly with everybody, I don't subscribe to that bullshit. That like, I don't care if you have a Model T broken in half roadster you're building, or you have the coolest thing on the planet, it's all still cool, and I'm not going to treat people differently. But there's definitely people in all these hobbies. The Porsche hobby, I saw it when I used to dabble in buying and selling some parts and stuff like that. And it was like the guys that had a 914 or a 924, that was a 924. You have a Volkswagen, that doesn't even count.
I can only imagine what that group of guys is like now.
It's the more, again, Deuce guys, 33.4, it's pretty bad. Yeah. When you get air cooled versus Porsche stuff, it gets worse. I can only imagine when you get into Ferraris and you get into other Packards. I'm sure it's with all of that stuff. And it's unfortunate that it's like that, but it is just human nature that rich people hang with rich people, good athletes hang out with good athletes,
Yeah, that's true.
You don't see NFL stars going and hanging out with the guy that's down at the
rec league.
Yeah, the rec league guys. They're not hanging out. It's just how it goes. But like, so breaking into that, as far as when we're talking about like the car you want or the parts you want, if all you can afford is to buy a piece of crap broken in half Model A Roadster, at least you got it. You're getting your foot in the door. You're starting to get into the stuff. And whatever the conspiracy theory is, I don't know how it works, you will start finding more of it. It will start finding you. Mm-hmm. And fast forward to now, we see Model A Roadsters and Model A Coupes that we could buy all the time. And it's funny how 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was like lusting after getting one for a good deal. And now we're like tripping over it because we're in it. The stuff's, so you got to really be in it. That's one thing I think is funny is like there's people that complain about how they'd love oh man, I can't believe you found a deuce. I wish I could find a deuce. But, well, you're not really, you got to get in it. You got to start hunting for the stuff.
And how hard are you actually looking?
Start buying quarter panels and doors. And if and once, so that's one of the things in this, don't be afraid to trade up. Don't be afraid to buy lesser stuff for a good deal to then turn into the better stuff. So if you're looking for a super rare flathead intake or whatever, insert speed equipment here, buy the bunch of the lesser stuff for good deals and then sell all of that to buy the one good thing. So my good friend Nick always says, I buy and sell the filth to pay retail for the good stuff. So it's a good way to put it. And he talks about, the way he puts it is really, it's what we do here in a very straightforward way of saying it. You buy a bunch of lesser stuff at good deals and you sell it for a profit. And who cares if you're paying retail for that thing you really want, because you're kind of, with car guy math, you're buying it for free.
I was just about to say that.
Car guy math. It also goes back to that.
All the talking points lead back to car guy math.
Yeah. So, and then the last one we talked about, and you're kind of, sort of in a way doing that. Build a car on a budget you potentially don't plan to keep forever. You plan to sell. So.
Yeah. And you kind of did that as well with that Model A Coupe, because you were scrounging pieces together and then you sold it for a profit.
Yep. Yeah. I kept a few things and then I put it together. Yeah. Actually, I did. Yeah, I did sell that one. I couldn't remember if I traded or sold it, but yeah. So, but even like building a car all the way to finish.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Like you and I talked about early on, Mike was talking about that he wants a 35 3-window.
Yeah, 30. I prefer a 35.
35, 36, but 35 3-window with like a nail head is kind of like one of Mike's ideal, car that he would like. And it's like he didn't find one, whatever. And this 34 Cabriolet popped up, and it was like, well, I got it for cheap. I'll pass the deal on to you. We could put it together amongst ourselves, and then drive it for a while. And then someday, if he sells it, you're not going to be into it for a lot of money, time,
profit. If I wanted to, I could buy a restored 35 3-window for
or a super solid rolling project
to turn into what I would like, and I'm basically only into it for the money that I had into the Cabriolet.
Right, so that's
is pretty cheap at this point.
Yeah, and we share that often, with doing the some of the stuff we've done. It's like we've put together cars or done cars, and you see, even just buying a car that's maybe a half-done project, buy it for a good deal, and it's a slight detour, but if you buy it, finish it up, and I know guys there's older guys that I know that have been doing that for their whole life. They like buy a junk 55 Chevy and they do the floors and they spend 3 to 5 years fixing it up. They drive for a little while and then they sell it. And then the guy goes, okay, now I can buy 55 Chevy convertible project they wanted. And it took 5 years to restore that one, but now with that little bit of money you have into it, you're able to buy the car you really want.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes longer. I mean, if you're looking to buy a Ferrari, obviously,
and you're starting with a red paperclip, it's going to take some time.
It's going to take some time, but with the early Ford stuff, I feel like it's way easier because
definitely,
it's kind of crazy how a junky. And I've proved it over and over again. I bought the DeLorean, what we call the DeLorean Roadster. It was junky and did not look good. It was the first time I was able to have a shot at buying a 32 Roadster, so I made it happen. And after I got that car and just started cleaning it up, I was getting offers that I could have made money on it.
Oh,
so
definitely.
It's like pretty crazy how that very quickly was worth more money just by taking all the junk out of it and putting better wheels and tires.
Just portraying it better.
Yeah.
Literally just cleaning all the junk around it and just putting it in
taking it out of its environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Help that car. But
I'm sure there's guys I mean, selling barn finds are like that.
Yeah.
Take it out of the barn and just clean it, and dudes are getting, reselling it, and not even touching it.
Yeah, making
Just
a lot more
cleaning
money.
the dust off of it.
Yeah, just making it look better. So you could definitely do that. It depends how far you want to take it down the rabbit hole. But sometimes it's just also going through the exercise. So if you're listening to this and you're just, I know we have a lot of people that follow our content that are maybe younger or just getting into this hobby and they're trying to figure all of this stuff out. So going through the process of building a car, which is sort of what you're doing.
Yep.
You're figuring out what it takes to build the car that you want. So like this, there's some stuff that probably on this car that you found out or you did that now you know on when you get to the next one, it's going to be better.
We've done that through the history of the channel too. If you notice that we put cars out and onto the road faster, it's because we've done it a few times now. So you figure out the steps on how to just do it more efficiently and quicker. And now when we get a car in, we can turn around and get it on the road much faster than we were 7 years ago.
And Steve and I are constantly talking about previous cars, and we do something on a car where, man, this works way nicer, or this drives way better than the last one because what did we do? And it's like, oh man, or there's something maybe I don't like after driving a car for a while, or we cut a corner and, you could, like, we did the exhaust a certain way, and when I sit at a stoplight, you kind of smell like exhaust. Mm-hmm. Well, this one, let's make sure we do the exhaust this way. And it's like, so going through that process of building a car, you're going to quickly, after building that car and driving it, you're going to figure out the stuff that sucked or you didn't like or you could have done better, or maybe you spent too much money buying the XYZ part and you could have just done it this other way and it would have been cheaper and quicker. So doing that.
Again, talking point one, repetition.
Yes. So that definitely will. And we're going to do a podcast. One topic we have coming up is why you need multiple project cars to get more done.
This only applies to Matt.
No, it applies to let me sell you on it. So stick around for that one in the future. That's a good one. And the last one, make friends with other addicts. Start a local AA club or meeting, and that's Autoholics Anonymous. Just made that up.
Yeah.
But so how? I mean,
that's what I did. I became friends with a crazy person, and it turned me into a crazy person, and now I work for said crazy person. So that's. Matt, I wasn't really doing like buying and selling and hustling much before I met Matt. And then I met Matt and saw the craziness, and it rubbed off, and now I'm also crazy. So,
but it's
for finding parts, it helps too because there's stuff that you find that you pass on. The Woody is a perfect example.
Yeah.
You and Jeff are both clinically insane people, and you know what he wants, and he knows what you want. And there's been multiple times that's crossed over between both of you. You each pass each other a lead to just get it to the person that it doesn't deserve to go to, but should go to.
Yeah, my second father Pete calls it keeping it in the family.
Yep.
So the joke is like our car group of friends,
our chapter of AA.
Yeah, we are kind of like family. All of us, are very close, and there's a bunch of us in a local area where we're all like, Jeff's probably more of a extended family.
Yeah.
But he's part of the group of friends in the area, and we all try and help each other out. So it's like I do that a lot, even though again people don't realize it or we don't talk about it probably as much as it happens. But there is tons of times that we do stuff or pass deals on, or
we could have bought it ourselves and just flipped it and made 100%. Money on it.
Yeah, because Jeff bought it right. We could have definitely bought it and cleaned it up a little bit and made some money, but that we don't need to buy everything. So, but making friends with other addicts is really good, especially if you're just starting out, because we have some friends that are in our close friend group that they're just kind of normal people. They have maybe one car. They go to car shows. They enjoy the culture and the hobby, and they're not scrounging the earth every second of the day trying to find neat old stuff. Well, for them, just being friends with us and hanging out and in our group of friends, our buddy Jason, he just mentioned he wanted to build a Roadster pickup T hot rod, And it was like within 3 months he had 60% of the car because he told us. And I'm like, hey, we found this. Hey, we got this. And it worked out because he helps us out all the time with stuff. We passed those deals on. We didn't make any money. We were like, hey, we're standing at this auction. The car's going for cheap.
Yeah.
You want us to buy it. You want us to get this bed, whatever. So I think doing that, associating yourself and making friends with people that are maybe have a bigger collection or they have the stuff you'd like to get. So if you have a Model A and you'd love to have a Deuce someday, being friends or a buddy with a guy that has a lot better stuff or more of that stuff, either A, you're going to become friends with them, and then they're going to start giving you deals or giving you stuff. I mean, I know in the hot rod world, it's kind of wild how if you're close with someone or you become friends, guys give away crazy stuff. I mean, in our friend group, it happens a lot. Like, and I've been taught that through Pete.
Yeah.
Pete is one of those guys that his whole life, if he likes you or he sees you need it or you're genuine, he'll just like give you like, oh, you need this? Here's a 32 grill. Yeah. Like, wait, what? He's just that kind of guy. And it's rubbed off. We've done it where I just 100%. Like gave stuff away. I mean, we just recently, for instance, it's like a guy, and it wasn't our close friend group, but like a guy we know from California that one of his club members needed a part, and we ended up not being able to make it to Grand National. We just overnighted it to him. We gave it to him. And it wasn't because I was looking for anything out of it.
Yep.
It's just how this hobby works. Like if somebody did that for me and I was trying to get a car done to get it to a show, it's like, it's amazing. And it's like, we just sent it because that's what you do. And people have done that for me and us. So we try and spread the love. So when you can start to become friends with other addicts that are way worse than you, you'll probably find that they're going to, even if they're giving you their filth, if you're friends with a guy that has really nice 32s, he probably gets or has junky 32 stuff that he'll just like sell you for cheap because it's, not something he would keep.
And another thing is those guys also get around a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
So,
true.
Like, for Jason to be friends with us, we get to, 30 more swap meets a year than he does. So we know what he's looking for. Yep. So he doesn't even need to go to the swap meets because we're basically shopping for Jason.
Right.
So if you become friends with someone like that, you just like go back to talking point number one, persistent. You tell them what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Enough times it's in the back of their head, and they, you might be from California, but you have a friend that's insane that goes to Hershey. He might call you while he's at Hershey and said, hey, you remember that part you keep fucking talking about relentlessly? I'm standing in front of it. It's X dollars. Do you want me to grab it for you?
And we've had that happen a lot. Like Hershey and Carlisle, a guy's just standing there right there. And he goes, I have a buddy back home that totally needs this. Let me call him right now. And it's like keeping his hand on the part. Hey, I'm looking at it. Yeah, it's $50. You cool with that? Yeah, no, I found, and they're like,
100%.
Guy can't believe that he found that part for him. So it's just making friends with other addicts is very, very, very helpful, and that is going to help you out.
I just had a thought. This is totally opposite of like AA, where you're getting friends to build community to not do the stuff that you're supposed to do. We're all becoming friends to get worse.
Yeah, in our AA, we all get together so that we can become worse with
the 12-step program takes you further down the rabbit hole.
Yes. If you just smoke weed occasionally, make friends with a guy that does heroin because you're gonna start doing heroin. It's great. Heroin's great.
Oh man, that is terrible.
So that's the equivalent of what we're saying. But you know what? It's harmless. It's better than drugs for the most part.
As long as you can pay your mortgage every month, it's better than drugs.
Yeah, if you can pay your bills, you can pay your mortgage, and that's again where if money is your main hurdle for getting that whatever item or car that you would like to get. We're focusing on project cars a lot, but like car, making the friends, and you're going to get that deal, or maybe you help out that guy. I've seen that happen a lot with older guys. Like a younger guy will help the older guy get his car finished, or maybe the younger guy is good at body work and the older friend can't do body work as well anymore. And he's got a Model A Roadster sitting out in the weeds that you'd love to buy. And a guy works for him, and then he gives him. I mean, it's just old-fashioned bartering where you're putting labor to, get it. So it does work. I've done it tons of times, giving friends parts because they came and helped us with whatever. Like our one rule is when we have friends that go on these picking adventures with us, if you are helping us for free, I pay for their travel and their meals and their lodging, of course. But what I generally do is if they see stuff that they want, within reason, of course.
No 32 grills.
Don't try going on a trip and you're like, oh, I want that blown.
I'll take the best piece from the lot.
That doesn't work. But most of the time, all of our friends that have done it before, there's like a few things and they're like, oh man, is it cool if I take it? I don't want any money. You just helped us for free. Like
Pittsburgh was funny. Everyone had like a little had a pile at the end of the day. You're like going through and you're like, can I take this? Yep. And everyone had their own little huddle of stuff.
That was one of the first times we did that, and everybody was kind of like, well. And everybody's like, well, what do you want for that? Just make a pile.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what I was going to do. And at the end of the day, they're like, well, so what do I owe you for all this stuff before I said,
just put it in the truck.
It's free. Take it. What? Like Jason had a whole damn like 55 Ford or not T-Bird, 55 dashboard. And I'm like, take it. I don't care if you sell it. Like,
take it.
Whatever you do.
You just helped us for 2 8-hour days loading a truck.
You can just have it. So that in this hobby, I feel like that happens so much where the stuff's literally free, but you need to be genuine. If you're a vulture that's trying to be friends with an old guy, and I laugh about this a lot because I had this conversation with one of the legendary collectors in our area that's still alive. He was asking me about a young guy that is super heavy into buying and selling now, and in the past 3 to 5 years, he's suddenly all of a sudden at every event, blah blah blah, and he's like. He felt the same way about me when I probably started coming around because he's been around forever. And he was like, "Hey, what's the deal with so and so?" I said, "I don't really know him that well. I just know he does the same thing I do. You've been doing your whole lifetime. He buys and sells and collects and whatever." He's like, "Okay." He's been calling me a lot and he's been trying to come to my house and been blah 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 blah. And I said, "Listen, X, no one beats the old guys. You guys have all been doing it longer than we've been alive. You know and you see these guys coming from a mile away. And that's why you're asking me about him, because you see him coming from a mile away. The reason he's being ultra nice and asking about your wife every time he sees you and whatever is because he wants to come to your house and buy the good shit for cheap." And it's like, and I long ago stopped that routine. Like, that dude that we're talking about, I've never been to his place. I've known him. He's invited us to come see his stuff, come visit him. I've never been there because that's not my goal. I just like to be friendly with him. Someday I'll get over there. It'll be a natural progression, or just it'll be convenient, and we go over there. No big deal. He's been here, but I don't. But everybody's trying to get to his place.
Yes.
Because he's got the stuff, and they want to get there, and they think if they get their foot in the door,
they should know better.
Any of these guys that are like master level hoarders or collectors,
it's not for sale. You just give up asking.
It's not going to happen. No matter how many times you buy him a coffee at the swap meet, that dude's not going to, sell you the parts. And it's just, we see it way too often. It has backfired. I've seen it many times backfire on guys that tried to do that route, and the old guy or the person saw through them after a while, and then they tell him to don't talk to me ever again, get out, whatever. So try and be genuine.
Yep.
Be a genuine person.
Yep. Don't be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
If you take that away from anything from this podcast, don't be a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, that's kind of our top 5 tips, hacks for finding that stuff. Hopefully some of them are helpful. These are fun talking points. We get a lot of DMs from people.
And I love when we do topics like this and then someone implements this and then they end up buying a project or using all this to motivate themselves to get what they've been after for a long time.
Right.
And if this does work for you, send us a message, send us an email. It's always cool to see the quote unquote success stories of our madness corrupting other people.
And we're not doing, to be clear, none of this stuff that we're saying or doing is anything new. Again, back to the old guys. All the old guys have been doing this before there was the internet. Nowadays, with social media and content creation, people, for whatever weird fucking reason, want to listen to people talk about this kind of stuff. And I listen to podcasts too, so it's like it's now a thing to talk about this type of stuff. So it's not new. It's just stuff that we're bringing up, and maybe it'll be a jumping point for you.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. Make sure you come back next week for a visual and audio podcast. I don't know what it's about.
Yeah, we don't know what we're talking about till we sit down to talk about it.
Yes, but we will. So thanks, guys. Catch you later.